First and foremost, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Hamakwah Kodash, giving all praises to the 144,000 elect men, to the elect women, children, and the rest of the 1/3 that's coming back to these law, statutes, and commandments in these last days. Before I get started, I just want to say make sure you click the like button and hit subscribe, and also hit that notification bell to keep this word going out, keep this truth going out, and just continue to do the work as we are definitely approaching some real times out here, man. So the CDC has came out to address American citizens about the impending coronavirus infecting on a much larger scale within the U.S. Now, notice how it seems as if since the coronavirus breakout, American leaders have continued to ensure that the virus is under control. President Donald Trump came out today and he was like, yeah, we have it all under control, right? And every time they report something within the United States, it's always a low number. There's, a couple dozen here, a couple dozen there, but it's not really enough for an alarm, right? Meanwhile, over in China, it's going crazy over there in China. There's certain cities where people are still being quarantined, haven't left their homes, and there's videos of them just screaming from their apartments out the window because they're getting fed up with what's going on. But at the same time, they don't want to risk catching the coronavirus. So the only way to express themselves is by screaming outside of their homes, right? Meanwhile, over here, Americans are completely in the dark. Why? Because they've been lulled to sleep by our leaders, right? Our leaders are making this coronavirus seem like it's an isolated situation whenever it comes to America. But meanwhile, it seems like everywhere else in the world, this pandemic is running rampant. They just had a report talking about how there's been cases of people with the coronavirus in the Canary Islands in Spain, right? There's also been an uptake in the number of cases of the coronavirus in Italy. So you got Asia that's pretty much being saturated with the virus. You got Italy, which is a part of Europe, being saturated with the virus, right? And America. So wherever this virus is, it has not been contained. You might hear stories about them containing certain cities, certain cruise ships, but the virus itself is not being contained, right? So the only way that the powers that be see fit to keep this under wraps is to actually control the narrative. They cannot control the virus, but they can control the narrative, right? Because every other aspect of what's going on is pointing to very bad things that are to come. Like, this coronavirus is actually having a negative impact on the economy, right? Because China being as large as it is, you got to understand that China has had a hand in almost everything, especially when it comes to America. Okay? China has the second largest pharmaceutical industry, right? With probably America being number one. But where do the products that America uses to create its prescription drugs, where do they come from? Guess what? They all come from China. All the plants they use to synthesize these prescription drugs, they all come from China. And if they don't come from China, then it's more likely that they come from India, right? Which is right next to China. So don't be surprised if there is a shortage of prescription drugs, because if they're going through it in China, then you got to understand that there's not going to be lots of cargo coming between China and the US. The US is locking down all of its ports of entry. This is not the time to be traveling, but it's also not the time to be trading with countries that are being exposed to this virus, which is practically every country, right? But if you don't trade with these countries, if you don't continue the current transactions that are being taken place, then the economy suffers. So it's almost a catch-22 as far as economics are concerned, and it's time for everybody to buckle down. So if you're not prepared right now for what's going on, you're going to be caught out there. You're going to be caught out there, okay? The men of the Lord have been prophesying downfall of this place for years, okay? All of these things are written in the scriptures. And now that it's happening, it's almost like people still don't get what's going on, right? Because they are used to enjoying the luxuries that they've had all this time. And their pride has been puffed up by being in America and entertaining all of its rhetoric. So even at the brink of a pandemic, people are just doing what they normally do, right? There's been cases of, so-called epidemics before, but they have died down, right? So what makes this different from all those other situations, right? Because if you say that, if you bring this up to somebody, especially a scoffer, then they're going to be like, yeah, this has happened before. So what you're saying is nothing new. This isn't new. It's never happened before. But what they don't understand is that never before has there been a pandemic to this magnitude affecting countries that have a large stake in our daily lives. Like, I don't think people really understand how many products that we used and take for granted that come from China alone. Like, if you take China out of the equation, a lot of what we have does not exist. Okay? It affects a lot of industries other than the pharmaceutical industry, right? You have these little products, these, things that we get from Walmart, these lamps, different pieces of furniture, the different items, technology devices. A lot of these things are outsourced from China. And if they're not working due to the lockdown that's going in their countries, then nothing is coming back over here. And Americans are too they're too narrow-minded to see that we need these, like, we are heavily dependent on these countries, because Americans don't want to do these laborious jobs. American jobs typically don't consist of hard labor. We outsource hard labor to these other countries. And the Most High is doing a hard shutdown, starting from the outside and letting this destruction, letting these calamities kind of seep in, right? Like the Most High says, wait for it, because it will not tarry. It will happen, right? And like a thief in the night. So as these people who are asleep continue to live their day-to-day lives like nothing's gonna happen, the collapse has already started, right? But once it gets to the point where it's like, oh snap, like I have to go and get this, like we actually have to get up and go now, then they're gonna be on the same plane that everybody else is on, right? Like you see in these movies where when there's some kind of disaster or some kind of national emergency that takes place in these movies, everybody runs to the grocery store. This is what's going to happen to all these people who are asleep. They're going to wake up at the wrong time, and they're going to be searching for the truth, and they won't be able to find it, right? Especially people who no longer have access to their prescription drugs. I'm talking about these crazy people that you see every day. You may not know it, but a lot of these people are bugged out of their minds because they're on these various different types of prescriptions. You know, a lot of them are taking, you know, attention like ADHD medication, right? And when they don't have it, they get even crazier. They go through withdrawal symptoms, and that's when the real demons that live inside of them start to come out even more. So imagine having people who are deprived of their prescription drugs and also being deprived of food because of the shortages, because of the lack of, you know, logistics, meaning, you know, shipments and goods are no longer coming in because the cities are on shutdown, right? They're on lockdown. Imagine how these people are going to act. The people who are most asleep are going to be the most craziest people running rampant in the time of trouble. And that's why the Lord says that, you know, wisdom and understanding shall be thy stability of thy times, because first of all, we've been waiting for this to happen. So this is not going to be a surprise to us. Some of us are, you know, doing little things here and there to prepare, you know, stacking, you know, stacking up, you know, canned goods here and there, learning, you know, certain survival techniques, being in the scriptures, knowing the right scriptures, you know, to lean on during times of trouble, right? But these other people who are out there in darkness, they're not going to know anything. They're going to be caught out there literally. And a lot of them are going to get real carnal. A lot of them are going to get real carnal. And they might say, wait a minute. What about that brother that was, you know, this brother or sister who's been telling me this stuff all the time? Maybe they might know something about this, right? And then they'll seek you, right? They might come to your door, knock on your door, and see what you got. Because you've been talking about this whole entire time. So during Jacob's trouble, best believe there's going to be a clash between the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor, those with wisdom, those without wisdom. There's going to be a clash in all facets of this thing. Okay? So it's a high time to wake up. It's a high time to refine yourself and make supplication to the Most High, right? Not to mention, you know, the official explanation of this is that this virus came from bats, right? And then you'll see all these posts about how the Moabites, the so-called Chinese man, is eating, you know, bat soup, right? To explain away the fact that this virus could have potentially been created, right, from other powers that be, and this bat explanation is just to explain it away, right? Because of course, if anything happens, we can just blame it on the animals, right? Not the fact that, this virus was made in a lab, or the fact that this virus has a patent, like there's a patent on the virus itself, or the fact that, you'll see posts about people who have, this coronavirus listed as, effective when using like certain cleaning, agents, right? Like Lysol and things of that nature. I saw a few posts about how, that 99.9% kills 99.9% bacteria. It has the coronavirus listed on there. So how can that be listed on the back of cleaning solutions when this is typically a new thing? That means somebody knew about it, right? But the official explanation is that it came from bats, right? So somebody was eating bat soup. Moab has no discretion as to the clean and the unclean. So it sounds very viable that, yeah, this is Moab's fault because Moab is over there eating bat soup, which is unclean, right? I was watching that movie Contagion over the weekend, and there's this clip in Contagion where it's towards the end, and sorry, this is a spoiler. If you haven't seen the movie, I would skip past this part, because I'm gonna go into how in this last part, it's in the end when the main character, or one of the main characters, is going through his wife's phone, and his wife seems to be patient zero, according to this movie. I could be wrong, but he was going through her photos. She went on vacation. She was in Hong Kong, and he was going through her photos, and he was trying to find out how this all started, how she was able to get infected by this virus. Long story short, and this had to have been the spirit that made me see this, but there's a part of the movie where it shows how a bat literally ate like a banana, and that banana or whatever that bat either dropped a piece of the banana that it had ate, or it was getting rid of it, by going number 2 in the jungle, and then it shows a damn pig picking up that waste that the bat had ate. So the virus had transferred from a bat to a pig, and then from a pig, that pig ended up being slaughtered and taken to a factory where the chef that was handling the pig ended up in a picture of the woman who was patient zero, right? Because she was eating, or she wasn't actually eating the swine, but the virus had transferred from a bat to a pig to the cook to the woman, right? And that's how it became a pandemic. And that kind of hit me because we are not supposed, Israel knows that, we're not supposed to be eating unclean food, right? And it just so happens that this virus transferred from one unclean food to another. Who knows? Maybe that might be a mechanism. Like maybe that might be a thing, because these unclean foods absorb so many toxins. They might be capable of absorbing more than that, in a way that they could transfer one disease or transfer these diseases between animals. Who knows? I could be wrong. Maybe, these diseases can transfer from an unclean animal to a clean animal. But for the sake of this movie, it just seemed as if, the disease went from the bat to the pig, and it was a wrap after that. So for all of you who are still eating unclean food, you need to repent, because you never know how the Most High is going to judge the earth. and judge folks for who continue to commit certain sins. Like if you want to continue eating pork, shrimp, crab, lobster, be my guest. Because one day you're gonna bite on a wrong piece of pepperoni or a wrong piece of shellfish, and there you have it. Boom. Judgment. Right? So there's a spiritual aspect to all of these laws, right? Because all of it has to do with the Most High. Right? Every clean and unclean thing has a purpose. And right now, it seems as if these unclean foods, these viruses are traveling through these unclean foods. There's no way to prove it, right? All we can go by is what they tell us. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring that out because if the CDC is coming out making statements about it and saying, they're prepared for this, that, and the third, well, guess what? It's already too late. You all should take this as the final warning. Don't wait until they say it's a problem in order for you to believe that it's a problem. No, it's a problem now. It was a problem yesterday. Right? So, do what you can to, put yourself in a comfortable position, right? First and foremost, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, staying prayed up, depending on where you work, you might be in a position to where you might end up in a place that is quarantined and you might not be able to leave your house. You never know what your lot is and what the Most High might put you through, right? Of course, we're going to be delivered, right? If we keep the faith, if we keep the law, statutes, and commandment and endure until the end, right? But everybody might be subjected to a different situation. So whether you want to stock up on food or whether you just want to, go out there and, the Lord is going to be with you. All right. But you got to be circumspect, right? You can't just go into anything blind. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You got to be aware of what's going on. Because the last thing you want to do is, take Esau's word for it. Then you're caught out there. Right? So that's all I really want to go into. Lord willing, you all were edified. Giving all glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Ba'Shem HaKadosh Shalom.